Of all media, games are among the best suited to telling horror stories. It's one thing to see or read about a horrifying event, but games make you an active participant. You no longer have the option of hiding under the covers of the scary parts. You've got to face them head on if you want to get to the end. A good horror game is made all the more effective by the fact that most games are about realizing fantasies of being a powerful warrior or a brave adventurer. But in a horror game, most of the time you're just an ordinary person, often armed with little more than a flashlight and a sprint meter that runs out way too quickly. With that in mind, here are the top 10 horror games. Starting off our list is a dark reimagining of Little Red Riding Hood by Tale of Tales. The path sets you a pretty straightforward goal. Pick one of the 6 Red Sisters and send her to Grandma's house without straying from the path. It's a straight line from the bus stop to the house, but there's nothing the least bit interesting about it. The woods, on the other hand, are filled with all kinds of fascinating things, and the sisters all have different observations about them that hint at their interests and characters. Of course, there's also a wolf in those woods. From the mind of Ben Yahtzee Croshaw comes this series of 4 adventure games that follows a primal evil from the modern day to the far future. When the master thief known only as Trilby breaks into the recently vacated Defoe Manor in hopes of finding something valuable, he gets far more than he bargained for. Isolation is a major theme here, with each game leaving you trapped in a closed circle while an unknown malevolence toys with you. Don't let the old-school Sierra-style visuals fool you. There is some truly chilling stuff here, and any fan of Lovecraftian horror would be well served to check these games out. Our 8th entry starts off with a suicide attempt, and only gets darker from there. Susan Ashworth, known to her neighbors as the Cat Lady, is brought back from death and tasked with killing 5 serial killers. Along the way, she'll have to deal with her own personal demons and answer the question of whether or not she truly has anything left worth living for. The monochrome art style, surreal visuals, and excellent voice acting make for a delightfully creepy experience, and no fan of horror-style adventure games collection is complete without it. Borrowing heavily from the mythology of its creator's native Indonesia, Dreadout tells the story of Linda, a high school student whose class trip takes an unexpected detour into a haunted town that houses an ancient evil. As Linda tries to find her friends and escape from the supernatural forces hounding her, she discovers mystic abilities of her own, namely the ability to banish spirits by taking photographs of them. Dreadout isn't without its faults. The combat can be a bit janky, and sometimes your objectives can be unclear, but a great atmosphere and some truly disturbing imagery more than make up for that. The 8 Pages was scary enough on its own, but Blue Isle Studios really upped their game for Slender: The Arrival. When your friend Kate disappears after developing an obsession with the titular faceless cryptid, you make the mistake of grabbing your camera and going out to look for her. Things quickly go from bad to worse as you find yourself alone with a creature whose humanoid trappings only serve to underscore how utterly alien it is. What is the Slender Man? Trying to find out might get you killed, but you'll keep coming back anyway. A bunch of young people have a get-together at a remote location where a mysterious figure starts terrorizing and murdering them. It's a tired old cliché, but Until Dawn breathes new life into it with some brilliant art design, impressive performance capture technology, and a truly engaging twist on this traditional horror setup. Taking control of several characters over the course of the story, you'll explore the mountain's mysteries, uncover the truth about what happened there last year, and see how many of you will survive until dawn. A lot of horror games play up the feeling of being helpless, but Among the Sleep takes that concept to its logical extreme and has you play as a toddler. With only your faithful Teddy, you venture into a dark, scary world to recover memories of your mother and hopefully find out what happened to her. Even commonplace things become a lot more intimidating when you're looking at them from a small child's perspective, to say nothing of the encroaching darkness that seems to follow you wherever you go. But Among the Sleep scores so high on this list also because of its emotional aspects. I'd go into more detail, but then I'd be spoiling it for you, and you should definitely check this game out. The Silent Hill series was one of the codifiers of survival horror, and Silent Hill 2 is the definite high point of the franchise. While many of the other games had you get mixed up in the machinations of a Lovecraft-style cult, Silent Hill 2's major antagonist is the town itself, ensnaring protagonist James Sunderland with promises of a reunion with his dead wife, and then forcing him to come to terms with his own inner darkness in the most sadistic ways possible. James meets a few other people, but they're thoroughly unreliable since they're also trapped in a struggle with their own demons. Silent Hill almost seems to enjoy tormenting the people who find their way there, and even those who escape from its fog-shrouded streets are never the same. In fiction, mental hospitals are almost always scary in some way, shape, or form, but Outlast's Mount Massive Asylum provides us with one of the most horrifying madhouses ever conceived. Journalist Miles Upshur acts on an anonymous tip that bad things are happening at the asylum, but when he arrives, he quickly discovers that all hell has broken loose. The inmates have been tortured beyond recognition and the staff have gone as insane as the patients, all thanks to the mysterious experiments of Project Walrider. Armed only with a night vision camera, Miles has no choice but to run or hide from the numerous psychopaths out for his blood, all so he can escape and get word of what's going on to the outside world. In order to do that, he has to get past a colorful cast of murderers, as well as the Walrider itself. Nobody said it would be easy. There's more to horror than simply having monsters jump out at you. A true master of horror knows that simply startling the player only goes so far. But with an oppressive atmosphere and subtle touches, you can fill the player with creeping dread every time he leaves the few places he knows are safe, venturing into the unknown, holding his breath every time he turns a corner or opens a door. No game creates this sense of terror better than Amnesia: The Dark Descent. Awakening with no memories, protagonist Daniel finds a message from himself with one instruction: kill Baron Alexander. Easier said than done, because Alexander has secreted himself away deep underground, and his monstrous creations and a malevolent shadow stand between you and him. As you make your way ever deeper into Castle Brennenburg, tension steadily mounts, abating only long enough to keep you from breaking before a fresh horror is visited upon you. It's easily the scariest game I've ever played, and for that reason it earns the top spot on this list. And that's the top 10 horror games. Which video games had you checking under your bed before going to sleep? Let us know in the comments and stay tuned to this channel for more lists and other games.